Founder culture really drives everything. And what I mean by culture is basically your founder's mindset, how they think and how they decide to do things and how they choose to communicate things is how a company actually get anything done and how they actually make any decisions. And how you make decisions in a company drives products. It drives what kind of product can be made and drives what kind of product will be delivered.
Hi, I'm Rachel Chalmers, and this is Generationship, the podcast at the intersection of infrastructure and artificial intelligence. We are the generation that's exploring generative AI. We are a finite group of people with a finite set of resources, and we have to share this infrastructure. We have to find fair and ethical ways to do that. The first generation ship has already set sail. It's the planet Earth, and you and I are the crew. This show is brought to you by Heavybit, the leading investor in developer-first startups. To learn more about Heavybit, visit heavybit.com. Today, I am very excited to have Timothy Chen on the show. Tim is the managing partner at Essence VC with a decade of experience leading engineering in enterprise infra and open source communities and companies. Prior to Essence, Tim was SVP of engineering at Cosmos, a popular open source blockchain SDK. Prior to Cosmos, Tim co-founded Hyperpilot with Stanford professor Christos Kozirakis, leveraging decades of research to disrupt the enterprise infrastructure space, which later exited to Cloudera. Prior to Hyperpilot, Tim was early employee at Mesosphere and Cloud Foundry. Tim's also active in the open source space as an Apache member. Thanks so much for coming on the show. It's great to have you.
I'm super excited. Yeah.
You have described Essence VC as being the investment firm you wish you'd had on your cap tables when you were a founder. Tell us more about that. Tell us how the fund came into being.
Yeah, that's how I describe myself and often to other founders too. But not to say any of my investors are bad at all. Disclaimer here, they're all great. Obviously we've heard so many investors that could do bad behaviors and stuff like that. My experience with my own investors and, now being an investor, feeling most people's intentions are generally good. But to answer your question, what does that mean is the kind of investor I wish I had my own cap table. It really comes down to who I am and what kind of company I was starting, right? So you talk about my background. I was mostly engineering. I built products. I joined early stage startups, first 10 employees twice. And I thought I knew a lot about companies and startups when I started my own company, but I realized I don't. As a founder, I've never been responsible for sales. I never really had to think outside the box for so many different things to make a company work. And I just realized once we raised our rounds, raised a seed round back in 2016, first time fundraising, and learn a lot. Everybody sells what they do, right? That's what VCs do with founders. I went to Sand Hill Road, went to San Francisco. Everybody sells. This is all the stuff we do. And once we have a few of them on our cap table, what I realized when I wish I had my cap table is really about talking about the people that I feel like are selling all these services. I realized it's really not specific to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's more generalized. It's really about I can do the same thing to everybody. And this everybody includes every kind of startup, right? Because most investors don't just back a particular space on a particular stage. Most of them, even the ones on our cap table have even the ones that only do seed, they quite often do a huge range of SaaSes and different kinds of companies. So their services are so broad. We help you hire, we help you find customers, we help you do things like that. And in reality, when you're just starting raising your first capital, your product most likely isn't there yet, or you're still building it, or you thought you have a product ready, but everything is a hypothesis at that point. Nothing really is proven out. And what I found is so difficult to help us at this sort of pre-product market fit phase is that, most help from VCs are tell us exactly what you need, tell us exactly what is the specifics of you're looking for, and tell us exactly how you're looking to sell. And we're going to open up our big portfolio to just a couple because, we don't want to waste everyone's time. And we give a very generic list of hires. You can give a big spreadsheet. Everybody kind of is shared for everyone. And none of that works for me.
Yeah.
They're just so generic. We're looking for very specific people, for specific mindsets with specific culture when it comes to hiring. And when it comes to finding customers, our product was not even built yet.
Mhm.
We're still building it. And I don't even know if it's going to work or not in the first product. Back then, we had a lot of confidence, of course, because that's we have to raise money, saying this is the thing to do, this is hot stuff to be building. But we learned quickly. I even wrote a blog post about our journey a little bit. Basically, we had to go through 3 different products, even find the one that actually worked, and took so much time.
Mhm.
And so during that part of the journey, I realized the help we really needed wasn't really about generic pipeline hiring or just random introductions to certain kind of companies. It's really trying to reduce the amount of mistakes we might make and also give us more insights about the things we might run into specifically for us, and also help us able to navigate these unknowns. And that's very difficult.
Yep.
I think investors by default, right, they're always great at picking. To be a great investor, you have to be great at picking to some degree.
But that's table stakes.
Yeah, but that's their side, right? It's not really our side.
Yeah.
From our point of view, what can you actually do to help us? And now, of course, now I'm on this side now. I fully understand. The best companies don't need any help, right?
Yes.
Their money,
Well, I don't know that that's true. I mean, some of my best outcomes, I really rolled up my sleeves and worked hard on them.
yeah.
But I love how you frame that, because when I think about the real contributions I made there, one was just I was totally convinced that those founders were going to make it. I was just bought in from day one. And I think just believing in them and cheering them up when they were having a bad day was pretty significant for them.
Yeah.
The other thing was I love working with technical founders on customer discovery because, as you say, product market fit is the thing. It's the most important thing that you could be working on. And so de-risking by just increasing the surface area you have with potential ICPs is really fun and really worthwhile.
Yeah. And so I think that's really the most interesting part is because investor has so broad experience, they always use that as their advantage to some degree. Because we sing SaaSes, we sing, all kinds of companies, including maybe the ones we heard of like Twilio and some others. So therefore, we can give you good advice. I just know none of the advice actually worked at all. But I definitely have found angels that are really useful. And when I kind of reflect back why they are so much more impactful, one is I think, I find at least some of the angels we work with, they just have more intimate knowledge and cadence they work with teams than some of the other investors are. So they kind of just know, oh, I just work with these teams are similar to your space just recently, right? Here's some specifics. So that's helpful, right? And they have much more specific context on certain people. And just frankly, just be available.
Yeah.
It's already a pretty big win versus not. Because, oftentimes, I guess to some degree, if you're a good-looking team, we can pick investors. But when you have investors, you haven't really established this trust or friendship or whatever. And also, we learn quickly, investors really selling them and getting into around once you're in,
You're yesterday's news.
yeah, I've done my job almost, right? My sales is done.
Yeah.
I'm just on life support, kind of you still have to have this relationship you need to build to feel comfortable asking whatever you think that is real specific or just questions. And so the sort of relationship building phase that we're able to do are only people can meet regularly. And also with the people that have so much context for our space. It really made pretty big difference. Obviously, relatively bigger difference than any other investor at our cap table. So that's kind of what I meant when I say want to be someone I want to be on my own cap table. It's really mimicking sort of the best ones and also having our own thoughts to it. What I see on my own cap table, now becoming Essence VC, I never knew how to be a VC whatsoever. This is my first time doing it. I never worked at a VC fund. I never even been in financial. I never took an MBA, right? None of that stuff. So there's so much to learn on a lot of other aspects of VC. But one thing I always feel like I know really well is working with founders because I've been one. And it's not that long ago. And I'm not going to be a perfect VC for everybody, for sure. But I think for anybody that not looks like me, but like have similar backgrounds with similar kind of space, I always felt very relatively confident that we should be so much more useful than anyone else. And so far it seems to be true. You never know. You cannot be 100% right, but we feel like we've done more good things than bad so far.
I love the approach and I love the genuine founder friendliness, but you're incredibly prolific. You have so many logos on your website. How do you manage your time across that portfolio?
Yeah.
How do you scale Tim?
And people literally use that question to me and like, or scaling Tim. And the more I thought about it, it's like, this is just not scalable. I would say that the approach we want to take is unscalable by design. Because if it's scalable, it means everybody else can do pretty much the same thing. So, we're a boutique fund with a very boutique value and it's completely unscalable, right? So we have to have an approach, what kind of companies we work with and how we work with them. And how do we make sure we have enough time and energy, but also understand how we make sure that our founders understand what we do really well. So, I talked to so many other GP friends and, this is a very common thing I also heard from other friends that are, going from really smaller funds and a little bit larger. They're much larger than me, but scaling the portfolio size, I guess, your time by default will be spread much more thinner.
Mm-hmm.
That means we have to be so much more specific what we tell founders what we do. Because, when I started, it was just like, hey, I'm Tim. You never heard of Essence VC. It's okay. As a founder, we do everything. Call me anytime, text me anything, and I still text and answer every question and everything we could. But it's also good to set expectations to founders. Like, hey, we're probably not the best at introducing so many customers to you because we're not here to be the most top funnel customer introductions for you. Some funds only focus on that, right? So we're going to introduce quite a few. Most of our companies, we have definitely introduced quite a few companies and design partners, but we're not going to be always the number one compared to everyone else, right? I basically had to set expectations to founders. Like, this is what we are so boutiquely good at. We know the space well. We know so many different companies went through exactly your phase, including myself. So it's less about the particular hiring or getting customers. It's really about our touch points and understanding how do we be open to talk about the journey you're on and the thought process you have. Because what we are really good at so far is almost like company momentum driving and positioning. Like fundamentally, how do you pick and choose what to do every week? We're really good at helping brainstorming some of that, in all aspects to it. It's also not very specific because I realized every company has a little different need to push different things. So it's not particular to like just hiring and so it's still a bit of a unique feel to it. But yeah, so the most important thing is being available to some degree pre-product market fit. So oftentimes when you have a sales team or you have repeatable sales, we don't have to do biweekly or weekly sync up anymore. You're okay. You have more folks that has so much more to offer ahead of sales, playbooks, runtime, GTM playbooks. We're still helpful. We've seen a lot, but that's why I want to really focus on your pre-product or pretty much your pre-product market fit phase. Because that phase, nobody helps the best, right? And that's really some of the most scariest time as a first-time founder or first time going into any space. I tell founders we focus on that phase.
Yep.
You're busy, you got sales teams, go for it. We can drop our syncs. But hey, if you have no sales teams, you barely make any sales. We got to do the syncs. We got to chat, we got to talk because that's the only way we show our value and help. We basically have a time window approach, basically, like for founders going through pre-product market fit. And that could actually take years.
Yep.
Unfortunately, it could take years. Some people actually only take months.
Yeah. But they are the exceptions, yeah.
We have teams like raising 3 rounds in 6 months. Like, okay, sir, I didn't get to chat with you that much, but you're good, sir. You can do whatever you want.
Go with God.
So it's sort of like a natural selection.
Yes.
We don't by design retire out people in a cohort, or add we don't have a time window cohort approach. We only have like a sales sort of like momentum approach where like if you're in the repeatable cells, we can be more hands-off.
I do think this is one of the great benefits of the proliferation of smaller firms. We don't all have to be Kleiner Perkins anymore. We can specialize and we can pick the thing that we're best at.
Yeah.
And startups can have a diverse cap table and different investors they can call on for different things.
And different personality.
Yeah.
I found some people I feel way more comfortable talking about certain things too. But some people I probably won't talk about some certain things, like people issues, probably for people that have been a manager and more empathetic. Having a hard time actually closing some certain deals, and I don't know how to drive certain things. There's certain people I probably feel like are probably better at that, right? So I feel like personality and almost like mindset plays in a big part of that too, beyond just like your harder skills. Your softer skills often plays at play.
How do you look at the investment landscape for AI, not just Gen AI, but all kinds of ML? What are you most excited about?
Well, given every company is AI
Yes.
and ML at this point, it's very difficult sometimes now to say what I'm actually more excited and less excited. Because like I said, everything is AI. So you can't not look at an AI company. And I guess most people know. It's funny, every company I talk to, even though you're not doing AI specific, AI is for sure has to be in our deck because even founders are getting every investor telling them, you gotta have AI. Like, I don't even want to talk to you if I know AI. It's so funny, like even the dev tool infra company doing networking, doing like security, that doesn't specifically just for AI. Big 70% of their deck is all AI everywhere, But we keep hearing from investors telling us AI is so important. That's why we have AI workload production, AI this, AI that. And I understand why, So back to your question, why I'm most excited. I feel like because I back really early stage, I've been backing people pre-idea quite a few times as well. Pre-product is almost a given to some degree, but pre-idea is sometimes a little scarier. And do I do AI, not do AI? To me, it doesn't really make much difference. I feel like I'm much more excited to back people.
Yeah.
Like I found somebody actually really, really good. And they have really good team with a really good mindset, have a deep enough knowledge of certain space, have a really open willingness to take feedback, right? Have a unique opinion about certain things. I'm so excited always to work with teams like that. And sometimes it doesn't even matter what they do. It could be we backed a debt collection company. I don't know much about debt collection pretty much at all. I have to learn about it, but the team is so great at knowing how to navigate that space. And I wasn't looking for one, but I got excited because this is the kind of team I like to back, that they have very passionate take on a space that they spend years for, in a space that I feel like has not many competition yet. And there's a real shot for them to do something. And so investors always say what they're excited about certain things. And if we have to, there are certain areas where it's some competitive. You need to have such a thematic way to look at things or thesis coming in. But sometimes we're also very opportunistic as well. Because if we see a great team, I'm always going to be excited about the great teams. Even on their ideas and areas I don't know super well. But on the flip side, on some of these particularly interesting or exciting things I'm always looking for, or I have particular ideas for, for a while I've been very excited about finding people doing multimodal LLMs.
Yep.
Just since a year or two ago, almost like 3-4 years ago, actually, we backed Rosebud, one of the earliest AI sort of like image generator almost 3-4 years ago, aesthetics, AI generative design company almost 2.5 years ago. So this is all pre-LLMs, pre-everything. GAN was just taking off. So I was super excited to back these early. And going into today, everything is AIs and multimodal is just taking off, like music, all kind of stuff is going on. But I feel like from an infra tooling standpoint, multimodal sort of like infra is still open. There's still a lot of things to do around not just specifically the workflows and the toolings, but the whole stack, actually. Video, audio generation, real-time latency stuff, all kind of things required. I think given the change of the content does require a pretty big shift of all this sort of infrastructure required to produce to serve, to iterate, to do a lot of like, production type of value application building stuff. So I'm actually always excited to see somebody going after something that unlocks a different kind of data for you to use AI with. Unstructured one company, for example, we did that kind of fits that bill.
Which parts of AI risk being overhyped, do you think? Where is there more noise than signal?
Maybe the first thing I think of is agents. Because I think agents is what everybody's talking about. Like back in the blockchain days, it was always a hype thing, right? And it kind of sort of died. I worked on blockchain for about 2 years. And, back in the day was, of course, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and then, you get NFTs and then DAOs, right? Now it feels so weird to even mention these things anymore, right? But at the point of time, there was these new, almost like shiny tools or shiny stars you can collect. Like, oh wow, you got to do an NFT company, right? You got to do a DAO company because that's the thing that's going to change everything, right? And in the end, these things change some things, right? It's not like they're completely useless, but certainly didn't make that big of a difference because it's a tool. It's not an actual paradigm shift. And I think AI agents I kind of put into some level of camp like that, where like, I don't think AI agents is like a paradigm shift. It's almost basically like an abstraction or a tool to some degree as well. It's very, very useful. I think a lot of companies are building agents to empower lots of things. And so it's just funny, like last year, nobody mentioned the word agent at all. Now, it's not just LLMs. We're building the agent for insurance. We're building the agents for that, right?
Yeah.
It used to be GPT for
Yeah.
insurance. Now it's agent for Y. But if you can easily just change a word and basically you're just kind of following what the state of art is at that point in time, means the state of art will change rapidly, quickly next as well. Like, I think agent probably will stay, just like NFT DAOs will stay. But it's probably not going to be this exact same way you look at it today. Right. It's a choice. It's a choice why you want to use agents and how you want to use agents. Like, it's just probably overhyped to a point where like every agent will become huge and every agent will become, the 007 that's just like assassinates every market. I think it's just much more marketing than actual realness to it, because agent doesn't work well as it is today. There's so many stuff that doesn't really able to actually produce real value yet. So you can't just use agents. It's part of your solution, but you get so much more you have to do here. So I think agents for now is a good market to look at. Like, I actually do believe in agents. We were backing the agent framework, for example. But from like a high value, like, is agent the answer for all things in life? Probably not. Not the overall category thing you want to stick on everything. And that's the thing that will make your company actually work. Like, just because you agents for insurance doesn't mean your company for insurance doesn't mean your product would definitely stand up. So to me, agents is probably overly hyped used word for now. For folks that we understand the space, we're always looking for specific nuances, way beyond just using agents, right?
How do you see AI making engineers' lives easier or harder?
We do dev tool investments a lot. AI is everywhere. Chatbots, co-pilots, the whole 9 yards, right? AI SREs, AI, whatever. My own company, Hyperpilot, we were actually using AI ML to help recommend like instance types. We're actually doing like runtime isolation for workloads using ML as well back in 2016. So I was basically doing an AI for SRE-ish company, almost 8 years ago. And I realized quickly that SREs hate AI. They hate ML. Like, all these things that sound nice on paper that it could save you so much work. And they look at it as like, this is going to give me so much pain. It's not a comforting thing. So, I mean, to answer your question, like, how is AI changing engineering? I actually always feel like the first reaction now I have is not about how much work it's going to help. It's also how much pain it will create for developers, just because, obviously we've looked at all the co-pilots of the world, all the sort of like Codians, and there's a bunch of VS Code forks, right? That adding AI into your IDEs and, it's going to be very useful in sort of like common cases, but it's going to make your edge cases so much damn harder to like figure out. And I think most people building tools always just highlights, look how good it is to debug a performance issue. Look how good it is to find one line fix in your code base. It's like, great. I'm not going to be excited just seeing somebody do that, because it's going to be so much false negatives and false positives. It's to a point like, I don't even want to turn this on all the time. So it's going to help a lot, but also going to create a lot of like it doesn't really replace the need to actually go down deep in every single thing yet. So there's probably some iterations required. But fundamentally, I think AI is here to stay. There's some workflows very specifically good to help engineers, one, write code, especially common patterns, very specific like boilerplate stuff. This is going to be great. AI is going to be really great to help on a very almost like, mundane task kind of stuff. I think it's also very good at helping you organize information. Like a lot of security stuff is probably still good to use AI for because it can help you catch so much signals and give you some level of insights for it. And maybe even looking at your logs and insight, like all the kind of like observability stuff, there's some level of truthness that you can use AI to help you distill some information down. But yeah, it's pretty consensus at this point that everybody believes AI is going to help do everything for developers. I think beyond just the common things, the very specific problems you want AI to help you solve, especially almost like the SRE type things, it's going to take quite a lot of nuance to make it right. And most people kind of focus too much on AI, too little on systems. And I feel like the best teams got to do both. You got to understand the systems really well and understand AI really well. You can't just sprinkle LLM dust to it or add an agent. Your agent's is gonna do whatever, yeah.
You have written about the importance of founder culture to a startup. How do you see startup culture informing the tools that we build in good ways and bad ways?
That's a really good question. Founder culture, if you work at startups before, you definitely will realize quickly. And especially we work with so much founders too as investor. But I feel like it's so much more visible if you're actually working at a company day to day.
Yeah.
That founder culture really drives everything. And what I mean by culture is basically your founder's mindset, or like maybe another word to use is mental health. There's some certain degree of how they think and how they decide to do things, how they choose to communicate things, is how a company actually get anything done and how they actually make any decisions. And how you make decisions in a company drives products.
Yeah.
It drives what kind of product can be made and drives what kind of product will be delivered and how we make those decisions. And so it's probably less of a directness, like founders' culture will make our dev tools use more colors or, uses Rust versus Go. It doesn't really drive those specific choices. It's more about the people they can actually able to hire and retain.
Yeah.
The cadences where they actually ship and do what with. Are they good at making long-term product investment bets or short-term investment bets, right? That drives a lot of kind of the products you can actually build. And building dev tool and any infra products is hard because it takes so much work, right? And people's expectations are always super high because there's always a workaround. You're never going to find an infra easily that has no workarounds. There's always going to be one. It's just so much harder to use. But you're finding what developers want to do it themselves. So the bar is always high. But the founder culture plays a big role because you have to find people that are good to have a very strong sense of what good means. You have to give it autonomy while not kind of completely lose control, do whatever they want, right? And how do you make good product decisions in a company? It will show up in any product you use. You use for sales products or versus you use Planetscale or uses Neon or, pick any other product, Heroku even today, right? Heroku, the culture of the company is fully reflecting Heroku's current product at this point, right?
Yep.
For something that's different than what you see in the past. I was probably argue some other companies, once you have like fundamental shifts of teams, your product just goes totally different directions. And that's also a reflection of a culture, because people no longer care about certain things, or people start to really care about certain things. It really changes what is being optimized. And I think oftentimes every product, you cannot optimize everything. You often only can optimize a few things. So that really drives from the culture point of view. Like, what does a founder actually want to deliver here? How do they set up the company for success? What are the things they're really able to like sell that we're currently doing? I know this is still very abstract speaking wise, but that's kind of what I learned working in startups and also my own company, that so many decisions making are really less about what the reality of the market also means, but also is kind of dependent on how the founders, what their belief system is. Because there's no data to it. Oftentimes startups are not just purely based on a survey. We're adding a bunch of features. You're not doing surveys everywhere for every single decision. It's too slow. So somebody has to make a judgment call on how to do things. And that really comes down to the type of things you can actually do well. Funny enough, I do care about that a lot when I even make decisions on investing on people.
I think that the great founders build products that reflect their character and their qualities. So Edith Harbaugh is incredibly tenacious and resilient, and her software makes its customers more resilient and more creative. I find it fascinating the way we distill our best practices into software, and the software still retains those traces of its creator.
Yeah. So it's not just because I worked at, I don't know, Docker, or I worked at different places, therefore I'm going to be the best, right? It's not really just about what you did. It's sometimes the personality and the mindset of the people. Can this person or this team able to create a company that revolves around the belief system to make this work?
I'm going to make you emperor of the solar system. For the next 5 years, everything goes the way you think it should. What does the world look like in 5 years?
The emperor of the solar system. Well, that's a pretty big system beyond the Earth and everything, right?
You've got a palace on Jupiter.
That's an interesting question. Just out of the whim, I don't think about this at all. But if I want to have any say of anything, I think the whole universe always revolves around people. And people usually, like going into VCs, and you probably feel this too. I didn't realize how much decision-making power really lies on just a few people.
Yeah. Yes.
And I feel like the whole world is like this,
Yes. Yeah.
It comes down to just a few people, even though we're supposed to reflect everyone, but it's impossible. It's a chain of trust system in the end, and everybody just has to trust on somebody. And nobody can ever make a fully perfect decision or decision framework, right? Every decision framework has flaws, and every system has its own like ups and downs. And just like, I feel like the universe of the world, and just talking about the Earth and how people make decisions overall, it leaves a lot of people unheard of.
Mm-hmm.
And unless your issue is so directly related to the people on the top, or you have very specific, large population, very noisy, a lot of issues get unheard of.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I even bring this up, because we adopted 3 children ourselves. And, adoption particularly is an issue that, is heard of, but like, at least on the Asian culture and Asian side of the world, nobody talks about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a big enough issue, right? Not a big enough thing. And there's so many different kinds of issues like that. So like, if the universe can be run by me, there's always going to be it's not sure how, but I would love to find ways to empower more people to able to solve more problems with less resources. Because to solve a lot of problems, you need systematic changes. And sometimes we can't make them. So I'm not sure we can actually make systematic changes for everyone. But I'm sure there's a lot more people who want to solve a lot more problems, but just don't have any other means to do it. Requires donation, requires a lot of people like putting up political campaigns, this and that. But not everybody knows how to do that really well. So to solve particular issues, there's certain things that needs to be done. I wish there's way more simpler ways for folks to solve more problems that is more localized, but can actually be a lot more aware of. I don't know. It's just my thought process.
Yeah, no, that's a really thoughtful answer, and I'm 100% on board.
Yeah.
Last question, my favorite question. If you had your own generation ship on a 100-year journey to Alpha Centauri, what would you call it?
What do I call it? I would say something that kind of resolves on importance or matters or something like that. Maybe like I'm not really good with names. I always try to find synonymous names of something similar to adjectives I'm looking for. Maybe I could just call it matters, I guess. Like for me, like I wish people can find what's most important for them and focus on them, and only focus on most important things in life. Of anybody in the generationship, right? It's like just do one thing well, or just do a few things well. Let's not trying to solve everything and not try to do everything. Like, I wish everyone can find their true passion in life. I know a lot of people like still forever, like not able to find something they're always as passionate or able to actually have the opportunity to do what they feel like are passionate. And so that leaves a lot of people not able to like pursue their dreams. So anyway, maybe it's something like that nature.
I love that. Tim, it's been a delight to have you on the show. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Of course. Happy to be on.
That's all we have time for today. If you're interested in being a guest, or if you know someone awesome I should interview, hook up with us online. We're available where all fine social medias are sold. This show is brought to you by Heavybit, the leading investor in developer-first startups. To learn more about Heavybit, visit heavybit.com.